The subject of this video is on equations of a circle, and so I really want to go right into the standard form of an equation, which is this equation here that we looked at in class today. So some signifying things that are important to note is that you're going to see some form of x squared and some form of y squared in your equation. In its most basic form, you'll see something like x squared plus y squared equals, let's say, 10 squared. And if that's the case, this absolutely is a circle. And when there's no numbers written here, its center is the origin. Okay, so it's its most basic form. It hasn't moved or translated side to side at all. So, but if you ever see x squared and y squared together being added, you're looking at a circle here. Then we started complicating it. We essentially translated this thing. And we did that by adding in numbers here and here. H and K are said to come from the center of the circle. And the tricky thing to remember here is that when you go to plug in H and K, because of these minus signs, those minus signs actually mean opposite sign. So essentially, you want to use the opposite sign of what you see from the center of the circle, okay? And then the last thing to make note of is that this R value right here, this R value right here is the radius. So once you know the center, you can kind of count your way to the end of the circle and know your radius of that circle as well. Sometimes that's written as R squared, and sometimes that's written as a number. So you would have to take the square root if it was written as just a number. There is another form of this equation which you will see when we start doing some practice problems here. And essentially the thing to make note of is if you see x squared and y squared together in equation, I want you to think circle. Our tool here to help guide us through this process is absolutely Desmos. It is not algebra by any means right now. So if you see something with x squared and y squared, or really anything that you're not sure about, you should always graph it and just see what pops up on the screen. So let's dive in and take a look at some of the questions that you might be asked to use or to do. So for example, the first is a very basic level question where it's saying, can you just write me an equation that has a center and a radius listed? So this definitely is one where I'm going to use that x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So I'm going to use x, and I'm going to keep the minus 9 because I have a positive 9 here, squared, plus I could write this as y squared equals, I'm going to keep going here, or I could write this as x minus 9 squared plus y minus 0 squared. Either one is fine, and I could have even made that plus 0 because 0 doesn't really have a positive or negative value. And then I could have written this as 7 squared, or I could have written it as 49. So there are lots of variations of this equation that could be seen as true or as one that will create the same circle, okay? Then we're given one on a graph, right? So we're asked to write the equation. So you can see that this graph has been moved to negative 2, 4. So meaning it's moved or translated 2 to the left and 4 up. So again, same idea here. I'm going to start with x, and I'm going to have to do plus 2 since it said minus 2. And I'm going to do minus 4 since it says plus 4. And then on this one, I actually have to count my radius here. So I can see that this radius is 2. So I'm going to write this as 2 squared. Again, you could have written that as 4. Looking at this one, this has been translated quite a bit. And it's a little blurry on this screen, but I believe it's over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that center is negative 7, negative 5. Because both of them are negative, I'm definitely going to be adding, that's not a 7, and adding both in my parentheses. And then counting my radius here, I see that my radius is 3. So in this case, I'm going to write 9, but you also could have written 3 squared. All right, so let's keep diving in here to see what is the radius and center of the circle. So now I've been given it, asked to figure this out. So I'm going to pull opposite sign here and opposite sign here, which is negative 12 comma 4. And then this one, with it being 81, I have to take the square root of 81. So this would be my center, and my radius would be 9. All right. If I kind of skip ahead here, this one right here asking for the center and radius again, but this one doesn't have a parenthesis. Remember, that does mean that it's 0. So 0 would be my x-coordinate, and then opposite sign here would be 11. There's my center. And my radius, if I take the square root of 144, I get a radius of 12. So you can kind of see this practice on and on again. So center is 0, 0. Radius, if I take the square root, is 5. This one would be -1, -2. This one doesn't come out nice, so I'm just going to leave it as the square root of 5. Here's our first example of this hot mess, right? Where I don't even know where to begin. It's not in the equation that we're familiar with. So essentially, I need to type this into Desmos so I can gather some information. So bear with me here as I type this in. So x squared plus y squared, and then it was 8x and -2y. So plus 8x minus 2y. And then I think it was, what, -24? -64. Goodness. Oops. -64. -64 equals 0. Okay, so once I type that in, I can see my circle here. So there's a few things that we're going to do. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm going to take a screenshot so I can mark this up. So the thing that's really important to take a look at is, you notice how I grabbed these points right here. That's important because those create the diameter between them. Our center is going to be at -4. The question is, where's the y value? So I moved down 10, and then I moved down 8 more. So the 10 got me to 0, and the down 8 more got me to -8. That means that I have a diameter of 18. So therefore, my radius is 9, okay? So if I start at 10 and I count down 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here is my center of circle, right here. I'm going to change my color. Here is my center of circle. So now I can see, okay, I've got a radius of 9, and my center is at -4, 1. I have everything I need now to go ahead and write this equation. So if I go back into, delete. So if I go back into this, I know that my center is -4, 1, and my radius is 9. So definitely when you see that x squared, y squared, definitely know that this means, oh, I've got a circle here. And if it's not in a form that you know anything to do with, or let's say even you forget what to do with it. Say you go to this and you're like, I don't even know how these work. Graph it. Graphing is your definite best tool in trying to figure this out and be a problem solver. There's 2 more of these. I'm going to do one more just to kind of solidify what that looks like. But remember, don't be afraid of that equation and what it might turn into. So I got 14x -12. So let's see here. 14x -12. And then I've got, was it negative or positive 4? Awesome. Okay, oops, sorry. Plus 4. Okay, so here's my equation. I'm going to identify my top and bottom. I'm going to mark this up for y'all so you can see how this works. So if I mark this up, I've got, it looks like this line segment right here is my diameter. So it looks like I'm at positive 15. I went down 15, and then I went down 3 more. That is 18 yet again. So my radius then is equal to 9. If I start at 15 and start counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm getting my center right there. Which if I know it's at -7, like if that's clear because that's where the vertical line is, and it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So -7, 6 is my center. So I know I have a radius of 9, and -7, 6 is my center. So if I go back, I have everything I need to write this equation. Excuse me. It would be x plus 7 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 9 squared, or 81. All right. If you have any questions about how that equation of the circle works, or those opposites, those sometimes are just things you just have to know, that there's no explaining of why is it a negative. It was created or derived that way. So, but if there is something I can help you with, please do not hesitate to come and ask.